We'll be in Matthew, the 16th chapter will be our root passage today. And going to talk a little bit because over the last couple of weeks, we've had some rededications and we've had a couple of public confessions of faith and salvations. This is good. This is great. I just want that every Sunday. Lord doesn't pay attention to what I want, but you know, it builds the church. It strengthens the church when people come forward and make public their decisions based on Christ and what they intend to do. Nothing strengthens the church like this. Baptisms do the same thing. But after last Sunday, I got to thinking, I need to hang a warning sign out that doing so, coming forward and getting things right between you and God, is like inviting Satan to attack.
Amen.
And boy, does he. And you would think that it would be the opposite, but I believe that God has purpose in it, and His intention is to shape us and mold us. And Satan wants to destroy us. So, in large part, how we relate and how we take this faith is determined upon our filters. All right? I'm going to use the example of Peter and Jesus in a conversation that they had in the 16th chapter. And we will start at, well, I tell you, let me give you a run up to it. Jesus is talking to the disciples, and he is telling them, look guys, things are going to change. I'm going to go to Jerusalem. They're going to kill me. They're going to beat me. They're going to kill me. And Peter pulls Jesus aside, and he said, well, let me go back to the 21st verse. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed on the third day, be raised again, or be raised alive. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall not happen to you. All right? This is what any of us would say. This is a normal reaction. Peter and the other disciples had spent a lot of time with Jesus, and they had grown to love him. They needed him. And they looked at him. And here Jesus is beginning to teach them, look, this is going to happen to me. And you begin to see, if you have read through any of the Gospels, then I think it's pretty obvious why Jesus spends a lot of time telling the disciples, haven't you got it yet? Why are you so dense? You know, he's in their face telling them things. Peter comes right out and goes up to the Lord and says, no, this is not going to happen to you. This is a demonstration of love. And Jesus said to him, Jesus turned to Peter and said, this is 23rd verse, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men. Now this is a harsh rebuke for somebody who just said, man, the language is, I love you so much. No, you're not going away. Yet, Jesus' rebuke to him was determined and strong. And it would be a hard pill to swallow. Was Peter suddenly infused with and possessed by Satan here? No. Was Jesus speaking to Peter? Yes, but also to the enemy. Peter wasn't filled with Satan. Peter was being influenced by human desire and human thought. And Satan was using the natural filters that we have in place. We have all kinds of these natural filters in place. And it keeps us, when we view or react to life through these filters, we a lot of times are separate from what God's desire is. Now, Peter's reaction was, I love you, I need you, I don't want you to go. Jesus, looking beyond the reality of life on earth, looking beyond the reality of the relationship that he had with Peter, looking beyond the love that he knew Peter was demonstrating here. He knew that this was not Satan speaking, but this was Peter speaking out of love, but behind the scenes, picking around at the edges, like a bird or a buzzard or a vulture, was Satan, using the circumstances, using the human reaction to oppose what had to happen. What had to happen is that Jesus had to fulfill what was his place in coming. A couple of months ago, we celebrated Jesus coming to the earth, this babe in a manger, and how the angels rejoiced. But at that point, when Jesus came, that wonderful point of celebration when the God who had been silent for decades and decades all of a sudden spoke through the presence of a child, and God himself became man and entered into the world, that day he was just as sure for the cross as the day they drove the nails through his hands. This had to happen. This was God's plan from the beginning. It was specific and had to be fulfilled, and yet Jesus Christ, being fully man, fully God, but fully man, was dealing with these issues inside himself. Absolutely obedient to the Father. But if he was fully man, and if Hebrews is right that he was tempted in every way just as we are, then indeed he was struggling with these things, and knew the presence of Satan even on the periphery of a common statement. This is what we do. This is what we do. This is what causes church divisions. This is what causes separations within families. This is what causes spiritual retardation and stalemate. This is what causes us to have difficulties, is that we are not seeing what God is doing. All right? I have watched this, and I'll use as an example a young woman accepted Christ, got baptized, and got married, has kids. But at a certain point, her spiritual growth began to just stand still. All right? There was no intent in her relationship with Jesus Christ. The curse that was in her family was alcoholism, drug abuse, and moral issues. It carried through to her. And when she came forward and accepted Christ, I mean, the people who knew her were absolutely in rejoicing mode. This is the end of the curse. And we looked at it, and everyone thought this is definitely the end of the curse. And the longer that has gone by, and the more her relationship with Christ has become stagnant and stale, the more the curse becomes present again. For those of you who have just recently accepted Christ, for those of you who have been in the family for a long time, this is something that you have to guard against.
Amen.
This is something that you have to watch. You have to be observant. God does not always do things according to how we think. Divisions in the church are caused by people who all of a sudden have this cocky idea. Well, I know what I need, what the church needs. That preacher is full of beans. the board of directors, they don't know what they're doing. We need this, and pretty soon they'll start building their little cell groups like spiritual terrorists. You think I'm lying? You think I'm lying? It is not of God for a church to be divided. Right? We are supposed to be unified. And so spiritual terrorists, I'm with that. I can go with that. And I have learned now, over some time, to get up in the face of it pretty quick. But these things happen because we are going through filters. We are looking at life through filters. Divisions in churches can happen because somebody is looking through the filter of pride or envy or power. It doesn't take long for Satan to move in.
Amen.
He picks at the edges. All it takes is for somebody to come up and stroke their pride a little bit and say, you should be doing this. And that person, they just grow another 2 inches and puff their chest out another 6. All of a sudden they're muscle bound. You can barely move. Spiritually they're giants. Boom, they go in for the kill. All right? They start. Satan is so cunning at this. Now, this church has experienced things where Satan has jumped up right in the middle of us and go boom. All right? And we know. But we've gotten wise to that. It's telling the board this morning, we've kind of gotten wise to that. We're watching for that. But instead, nowadays, he's going around the periphery like this buzzard, picking, like a crow, picking at something.